Okay, I'll try one in English. I don't want to at all, but I'll do it anyway. Who cares? No, I don't want to do this. I'm not used to speak English. But anyway, it's great to learn to speak in another language sometimes. I think it is nice to do. Even if you sound like a... But anyway, I have a great day. I was training, exercising, doing a workout, and it was fine and it was great. I don't know, but I'll try to... It is somewhat of a hurdle to speak in English. It's actually harder to be spontaneous, or to spontaneously form sentences and just... But I think it's good anyway. I thought about it many times. I've not done one in a while, and this one probably not be too long because I'll have to finish my cooking. But yes, that's how it is. That's how it goes. As I think it was quite a long time ago. I can't remember when I last time did one in English, and I remember when I listened to someone. I wanted to see. Not too often listen to these videos after I recorded them, but when I did, I did not appreciate the ones in English. Actually, I don't know why, but I still think it's good practice. Mine of the Swedish one I didn't appreciate too, but not of the content mostly, even though sometimes I found I perceived myself as being quite, I don't know, but in the how I express myself that's more disappointing sometimes, or not how I express myself, but how I sound. But at the same time, I know lots of people, the worst thing they can hear is hearing their own voice recorded, so it's actually quite common. So, but anyway, and I talk about that in the last video as well. If you're wondering what I'm sounding is, I don't know why I hold this book. I haven't read it today. It was quite some days ago, but yeah, I'm just restless, I guess. So, what am I going to talk about? Well, it's quite unusual for me to prepare this good for a talk that I've done today. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not prepared anything. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just to freestyle. But I guess I'm quite happy because I'm going to meet some good friends I have tomorrow after my job, and that is exciting and fun. Yeah, it is. And it is. I actually talked about that in other videos, and I actually think it was right before I met these guys that most of them, or some of them, are the same guys, same group of people that I'm going to meet now, tomorrow. I think I'm talking beforehand, before I met them, a week ago, I guess it is then. Felt like more previously, but more like near in time, but But I think I said back then that I think it's common to, I mean, we're very social creatures, and it's of course we all have a drive to be social. I mean, no, it's very, very rare to want to be like isolated, like what's it called, eremit? What's it called in English? Yeah, extra, like socially. What's the word? Yeah, without social context at all. That's like no same people, or at least no, it's extremely uncommon to not want it at all, I guess. So we are, but so what I'm getting at is how we relate to like family, friends, and just social things. I mean, most people have a social urge to do things or have some sort of social, like I have like a quite strong, I would say, but I don't think it's necessarily doesn't have to be more stronger than other people. I just know I guess it's strong in everyone, really. Or we take different forms, because my strongest drive is quite long-term in a sense. When I am alone, I don't have an urge to meet people like now, but I have sort of in a visionary what I want my life to be like. It's very socially oriented, but I don't always feel like an urge to meet people. I can have that, and when like for example when I'm more on the go and more it's just socially, it's like it feeds on itself. When it's a momentum in it, you want more of it. I usually find that quite often. It's like when you're traveling and coming home, you get an urge to travel more. It's kind of like that, I think. But what I was getting at, and I think it discussed in a previous video recently, was that I don't always feel an urge to meet people like now. It's usually I don't have a positive association to it. And I think, but when people do take initiatives, I usually will get very happy and get happier until I have met them. So, and often, in almost all cases afterwards too. So, and I think it's probably a repetition from last time, but I do think that it's not very strange that that's the case, because like of course we need a strong social urge to meet people, because we will die if we live alone in the other world, or in previously in history or prehistory especially perhaps. But usually I don't think it's been often that you've like, if you're not in the sort of tribe, which is a very dangerous position to be in if you're in an evolutionary context, because you're alone, you will die. Like if I was put in that environment, I'm quite sure I would seek up the other ones. But inside, which is quite against my theory here, because my theory is that you've not really been in circumstances that when there's been sort of, it's not like everyone is more on their own now. No, it's not a clan, it's not a tribe over there where everyone is. Because if that's the case, you don't feel very well if like that happens everywhere. If everyone is on another place like near you in any circumstance in your life, and you're sort of supposed to be with them and you're not, then you're not really going to feel well. So then it's obvious that you'll have an urge to go there. But when the world is so uppsplittad, what's the English word? Scattered, sort of, socially, that you have like contacts that are not, you have sort of small tribes perhaps and stuff. It's not like right now you don't, if you knew they, like many of them were on the same place at the same time, that you were supposed to be with them, then you would have that urge. But I think it's common, like in the today, that in civilization today, could perhaps say many stages in history of civilization, I don't know, but that it's not like, yeah, one thing is just that you survive and you have shelter on your own, so you're getting by. But so perhaps you could say that you don't need the social urge or force, even though you would have it perhaps in the evolutionary context too, but you will also be forced by just circumstances that you will die. You won't have shelter if you're on your own, so you will have other forces perhaps forcing you to take a social initiative to be in the tribe. And when you're in the tribe, you're always there. Like people are, yeah, some people, I guess, I don't know exactly how it looks like, but people are automatically around you. It's like living in the same household. You really can't avoid people. So, and today, when I have lonely house, well, perhaps you should call it lonely households. I'm not sure if it's good to live alone, really. I mean, I don't think that in the long term with the relationships and stuff, I think you should have a partner and so forth, but I'm just talking about like what many young people do in certain periods of their life. They live by their own in their own apartment, like me, for now, and I don't think that's good. I think it's obvious that it's not, but in today's society, it's really a skill you should learn, because many people won't take the necessary, like I don't do it in a satisfactory degree at all. Like there are many things that becomes much more of a hurdle or a in the way of you living a social life that you're supposed to live, like that's natural for you, for your organism to live. And that's I think is an explanation for why, like for me, for example, I don't have an urge always, because that urge is perhaps not necessary for me to survive. It's more of it's probably other factors that have, it's not obvious where you should be forced, where you're sort of not in the tribe, where the tribe is. That's the thing. It's just people are scattered and you have friends, and yeah, it could be sort of tribes here and there, but it's not obvious sort of where. And perhaps when you're closer to being in sort of a tribe or I don't know what you should call it in today's society, but just like you have work, and work is sort of one sort of tribe, but you usually don't have, like, it's not necessarily the case that you're like super close to all your colleagues. You have friends, but yeah, so it's, and I also think that's yeah, and I also think it's true, like the thing that you that you I lost my train of thought. But I just realized another thing, that because it is interesting that I don't feel an urge for it myself usually, but and I've thought about it because sometimes it can feel as if it's you could view it in a way that it's just uncomfortable to do. But and yes, that may be true. So I can't really. I don't feel that when it comes to friends. I can't. I think I have felt it at point where when it's not being sort of what should I say, customary to when different phases have come in life, like for example after school, when was because that was the case when you're in school and you're not in school after, then you have to work on those relationships more, because it wasn't a natural thing to go to that sort of called tribe, but that school, and then you have to work in it. So then it was not obvious for me just to take contact with my friends in the same way as it was in that just come now. You didn't even have to do it, because you could just, it was natural to just ask about an assignment or just ask for help later in the night. Just, how do you solve this problem, blah blah blah, and what about this assignment. That was natural, but so you never really had to take any well, you could say we all live different lives, but for me, during like high school, it was not common that we socialized outside school that much. I had my trainings my track and field trainings all the time, and we were together like 8 times, 5 times, 8 hours 5 times a day. So it's just but I don't think it's like where I'm going back to the main thread here. So at that point, after that, it was not for me like, oh, this is how I should just continue to have, how do you express it in English? To underhålla, to maintain the relationship and what was needed for it. But now it's just, for me, I just don't feel the urge, but of course it depends on the initiatives. If it's more, I wouldn't say that I'm good at all types of and comfortable with all types of initiatives also, at all times, but I would say that perhaps it's a double problem. But if it's more that it's a problem with, my feelings, just I'm too tired, I'm too lazy. Laziness is probably the main, absolute mostly, or lazy. Yeah, I'm just I don't ork. How do you say it in English? Switching subjects, I don't think it's, I think I've been thinking about this many times. What's the best explanation for orkar in English? I don't ork. I don't orks. That's fun. No, well, it is. So yeah, I think that's the most common. Why I forgot the main thread. Or perhaps that was the main thread. Why did my brain stop? Doesn't feel like a place where my brain should stop, but it did. But I think it's interesting, and though I think it's very, very, very interesting to think about just social dynamics. Like, sounds too fancy, but social, I guess it is social dynamics. Social networks sounds so business-like, but just social. Yeah, it's social network, but it's more than that. It's more of social tribes. Always, it's so overused, but social. What should you call it? Yeah, but you know what I mean. Especially in the context of human, civilization actually. Yes, how that plays out. It's very, very different from what we're adapted to, but it's, of course, there's a lot of elements that's similar, but what makes it distinguished, what makes it interesting, I mean, of course, it's different. Of course, there are a lot of things that are still working in the same way, but because, I mean, you're I mean, you're not you're not bred on a stone. I mean, you're still human beings. You're not an atom in a waterfall or something. You're still human beings, and you're negotiating and meeting people and all that. So of course you're still dog barking. I don't know if you hear it, but yeah, you're actually having, yeah, so that's my point. It's so many things that's not in the same way as you're adapted to be. Like, I took an example of people living in their own apartments and so forth, and like, I think we should study more like how people live on farms and how farm life is. I don't know exactly. I have to say I should know more, but I don't know how it is to living on a farm, like how they did before all the industrial revolutions and all that. And because it's on a farm now, it's quite different from back then, because your children are still going to school and all that, for good and bad, I guess. But so, by the way, I think it's when the time's up on my timer on my phone, I think this video would end automatically. And it's time for food. So, but I think I perhaps will continue on another one afterwards. I think it's still 10 minutes to go, but anyway. I think it's almost, I almost want to go so far as to say it's a shame that we don't have sort of tried to address that. Perhaps we have, but how could we have failed so hard? I mean, but of course, I mean, well, I'm thinking in the evolutionary, I think of people, could take many examples for bullied people, or just people that have, like, it's always a sort of degree on how comfortable you are with your social context and your social sphere. That's what I was saying. Sphere. Social sphere. Swear word. Social swear. Never mind. But it's strange that I think there have been, like, in more sort of perhaps socialistic or social democratic, I think it's been elements of that. I don't know too much about it, but it's like folkhem in Swedish, like folkhem in Swedish is like folks. That's a word in English as well. Folk home, basically it is the home of the people, sort of. And I think that was perhaps the idea, that it's and actually you could call it a sort of nationalistic project, although they would just also balk out, or they would just, well, don't associate social democrats with nationalism. It's, I guess everyone hates it, but I shouldn't go into that at all. But nationally, I mean, yes, it is like it was an attempt to create something like belonging to the. They would never use the word nation or the perhaps, but just, or perhaps they would. I don't. It's not my area of expertise. Like those political things that happened before in the 20th century, before I was born, but because Sweden has had this huge social democratic long rule, really, with just few interruptions for a long time, but that was a key idea, like folkhemmet, and so that's perhaps, I guess, attempts, and it's probably lots of ideas in that, and perhaps other. I mean, if you're reading conservative literature, it's a key idea there is that one thing that you want to preserve. Let's see if I remember this. You want to preserve. I like this idea, I think, but I don't remember it clearly. I don't think it was just as easy as you don't. Yeah, the usual conservative argument could be like you want to preserve social, what do you call it, groups, things, dynamics, or just social, because they work in history, and that's just why you want to preserve it, like now, because it's proven to work, but it was something else there that I found. Maybe it was something like that. I think the author's name was Kekes, Keeks, Keeks. Anyway, maybe he just made a summary. I don't know if he was conservative. But so I guess there are attempts to like how social things should work in many ideologies. And that's perhaps one of the few places where you can find, because science don't necessarily want to say like you should live like this. It's not what you call it Swedish, normative and descriptive. Normative, I guess that's an English word as well. That means that you say how things should be, and that I think it's used that way. But that's at least in Swedish. But if I remember correctly. But so science usually want to describe the truth. It's not necessarily something that. So then you perhaps go to business or politics. Here is a place where you're like creating something more of like. Then you can use science and say, okay, this is what science says how it is. Then therefore we should do like this. So I guess it's in politics and just for people, for themselves to just create stuff. But just because we don't have, not all people have that urge. Like for me, I have that long-term urge to create something that for people and myself, of course, as well. But just, and it's just, but no. But Yeah, it's strange that we don't have more. Well, I do think we have lots of them like those. Perhaps it's created. I mean, perhaps. Like when I thought about what I wanted to do with my life, I usually thought that I want to create something that I would have liked to go to when I was younger, that was not there and was never presented for me. That's usually how I think about it. More directed to young people, but not necessarily. It could just be a general thing. Just started to create, but that's not. It's not easy, and it's not like you really have to carve it out. You have to create it. You have to take any type of steps, social steps, and anything to that. And well, that's where I can find an urge, and that's where I guess fear comes in, because fear, I mean, we're all sort of have some social wisdom or fear and dumbness, you could call it both, because I mean, you shouldn't do anything socially. You shouldn't do anything. Like you shouldn't kill people. You shouldn't hurt them, and you shouldn't. But yes, you shouldn't. Probably don't be too weird, as well. And the reason is, yeah, because it will not be appreciated by people. It's a big thing in life, I guess, social life, to make others feel comfortable and likable and so forth, and that you be likable. But I'm just waiting on that alarm to go, and I don't want to lose my train of thought here. But anyway, yeah. So just creating. I forgot exactly where I was going, but yeah. So that was it. Both social, it can be social wise or social dumb to have fears when it comes to social thing, because some fears are not legitimate today. They're not. They're more just an obstacle you have to get over. Like, for example, a fear for having speech is probably something that you have to, and just reaching out to friends and going on network and so forth. But and perhaps most of them are fears, and but at the same time, a lot of people behave in ways socially that are destructive, for other people and for society, and sometimes for themselves as well. So it's not so. Yeah, some social fears are perhaps good, but I don't know. But I think when it comes to those things, for me, when it's sort of more long term, well, I think it's more of fear than lazy. Well, at least both. It's laziness as well, but it is not. It's not. It is not natural for us to live like we're living. I think that's important to understand. Like, we're not supposed to have. So it's, yeah, and it's, yeah. I mean, you should leave that part free. Of course, people should do what they want to, but you have to, you should be trained in it. Like, and you do, perhaps in some, you do, but that's usually for people who actually like are very rich in initiative, like for example handling projects, or perhaps throwing a party or something like that. It's not something that's delegated to you in school, for example, and some parents help their children to do that, but many don't, because they haven't got them themselves. Like, it's just a vicious cycle. But yes,